Have you ever noticed that when family comes to visit or you go to visit them, your marriage suddenly feels harder? Little things that normally wouldn't bother you become bigger issues. You feel the pressure to clean the house and to have perfect meals and perfectly well behaved kids and somehow keep everybody happy, be the hostess with the mostest, or if you're visiting there, just have everything go smoothly and to be liked and to be seen as a wonderful wife and woman and mother. And then before you know it, you're frustrated with your husband, not necessarily because of anything they did or didn't do, although it could definitely be part of it, but because you're both carrying the weight of these big, unrealistic expectations. At least if you're anything like I am, then you might be carrying expectations. So, what if the real problem isn't your family or his family necessarily, although that's a whole other issue, right? But I'm talking about the problem within your relationship and your communication, right? So, what if the real problem isn't really your marriage or the visit or the people who are around you that you have no control over? But what if it's the pressure to be perfect and the fear of what other people might think? So, today I want to talk about how family visits can expose these hidden expectations, create unnecessary tension between spouses, and how letting go of perfection can actually bring you a lot more peace, connection, and joy to your marriage. So, welcome to Softening into Love. My name is Laura Amador, and I'm a relationship coach for wives. And I'm so, so happy that you're here. So, the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because it's summer, although honestly, this applies to any time of the year, holidays, vacations, when a lot of families are getting together. And it could, of course, just be friends as well. It doesn't have to be family. But any time that we are kind of shaken out of our routines or put in a different environment, right? Our environment around us changes, whether it's that we're going somewhere else or people are coming into our environment, it shakes things up. And I know for me, that used to be a big source of stress and anxiety leading up to it as well. And years ago, many years ago, before I really went into learning about the skills that it takes for a thriving marriage, I really didn't have the skills to understand my own experience and why I was so anxious and stressed whenever things were shaken up in my life and how that was contributing to the disconnect and the tension in my marriage. One of the things that experienced repeatedly that really revealed these gaps for me and these issues were whenever we were visiting family or family was visiting us. And to be clear, it was never about the family at all, or the people. It was just about what issues it was were being revealed for me during those visits. And it can be very easy, or at least it was for me, to think that the problem was everything that's outside of myself. But really, it was the loss of control that was leading me to feel so afraid, so anxious, so tense, and so resentful because everything felt shaken up. So, to give you an example, years ago, when we first got married and family came to stay with us and we would go and stay with family, I would put immense pressure on myself to be this perfect wife. I wanted them to like me so badly. And I wanted not just to be liked, but to be seen as a success. Like to have that acknowledgement, right? To feel acknowledged for everything that I did right and to be seen as um, I don't know, something that my husband could be and should be proud of, right? I wanted to feel like I fit in, like I was accepted. And so there was a lot of pressure on, okay, if that's what I want, how am I going to get that? And what I thought at the time would get me there, that feeling of acceptance and ease and tranquility and calm. I thought that I would get that through managing everything, right? Through essentially through control. So I would go out of my way to make sure that the house was absolutely positively spotless. And I did all these little things like get little packages, self care packages for every visitor that was staying, with a little, handwritten welcome note. And I just really wanted to go above and beyond. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I think it was just the intention from which that was coming from. It was coming from fear. It was coming from feeling like I needed to do these things and go above and beyond in order to be liked and for things to go smoothly. So, I would get up early and do all of the cooking and stay up late and do all of the cleaning and absolutely refuse any offers of help. I would say, no, 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 you're on vacation. You don't lift a finger. And yeah, I just wanted to do it all myself. And I thought if I do it all myself, that's, excuse me, that's going to earn me acceptance. That's going to earn me love. That's going to earn me respect. And that's going to earn me, in turn, not only their love and acceptance, but even more love and acceptance in my relationship, right? I was grasping and grappling for that love and acceptance in my relationship by trying to get it through the family and going in these circles, trying to get it by controlling everything that I could possibly control in order to control the one thing I really couldn't, which was essentially what people thought of me and how they perceived me. So, all that to say that family visits were exhausting for me. They were exhausting, they were overwhelming, they were anxiety inducing because there was so much pressure for everything to go off without a hitch, for everything to be perfect, and for me to carry the illusion of perfection. And all of that pressure, no wonder, made these family visits feel really overwhelming and tough. And it was unfortunately so much of my own doing because I was sacrificing my own well being in order to create this perfect flow and perfect illusion for everybody else. But really, it was built on a house of cards because I was worn out, resentful, not enjoying myself, and therefore not feeling very warm and joyful. And it's hard to connect with someone who's not feeling warm and joyful, right? It's hard to connect with someone that's worn to the bone, that's exhausted, and that's feeling resentful. And so it's no wonder I didn't feel connected to anybody during these visits. I didn't feel connected to our guests, to my husband, or to myself. And it became something that I came to kind of dread. And again, not because of the guests or the visitors, but just because of how much pressure was involved and how resentful I felt and how, I started to create these stories in my head that I wasn't wanted or I wasn't appreciated or I had to do it all myself. And it really, yeah, it created this very miserable situation for me. Now, I have come a really long way since then, thank goodness. Um, but I have to be honest, the old ways that I used to operate from occasionally peep their ugly head out and kind of pop back into my life. And I was more recently, we're hosting several people this summer, and I found myself feeling that old tinge of anxiety again. And that surprised me because it's been a really long time since I felt that. It's been, I don't know, probably almost a decade since I've felt any anxiety around hosting people, for a prolonged time. And yeah, and so I wondered, what is going on? Why am I feeling like this again? And I realized that there were a few things within my mind and my mindset that needed tending to. And I know for me, anytime that I feel anxious about an experience, and I'm really, it can feel like, oh, I'm feeling anxious about the guests, or I'm feeling anxious about this trip that's coming up, or I'm feeling anxious about XYZ, fill in the blank with whatever it is you're feeling anxious about, right? It's usually because A, I'm not grounded in the present, right? I'm fearful about the future. But more importantly, it's because I'm really scared about loss of control, because that puts me in a really vulnerable position. If I, and speaking specifically to having guests or visiting with family, right? It's vulnerable because all of a sudden it's like you're being exposed, right? Your normal way of being when you're not being watched might be in some ways different to the person that you show up as when you're really trying to impress someone, for example, right? And so to have someone come into your space and kind of your routines feel shaken up, and you can't control how other people show up in your space or in your life during this time, right? There's just so many factors that we cannot control when that's going on, when that happens, right? And it puts us in a very, yeah, it can make you feel very vulnerable when there is such a loss of control. And so I know for me, that was really what I struggled with. And so I'd love to share today the 5 things that I do whenever I feel anxious about the loss of control and anxious about the vulnerability of feeling exposed, or being afraid of being judged, or being afraid of feeling left out or not enough, or feeling um, yeah, just anxiety, right? All of those human experiences of just being afraid and wanting to be loved and accepted, and wanting to feel really at peace with who you are, and good and confident in how you feel. So, the first thing that I always do is to face the fear, to call out the fear, right? To really ask myself, okay, I'm feeling anxious. I kind of know about what, or, the thing that's making me feel anxious is this upcoming trip, for example, or, this upcoming time that we're going to have guests, or this upcoming thing that's about to shake up my life and shake up my routine, right? Whatever it is, fill it in for yourself, right? To really face my fear and say, okay, what am I really afraid of here? What am I truly afraid of? And I know for me, um, when talking about family, right? Having guests, or visiting family, or visiting friends, or whatever it is for you. For me, it's the fear of judgment, the fear of loss of control, the fear of vulnerability, the fear of not being able to fill up my cup, the fear of overwhelm and exhaustion, the fear of lost sleep, the fear of not honoring myself, the fear of becoming cranky and or resentful, right? There's all of these fears. And so I know for me, just writing it out and calling out the fear and really facing it and saying, okay, this is what I'm actually afraid of. Okay, let me take a look at it. That's so important, because if I don't know what I'm really afraid of, I can't really address it. And so once I know what I'm really afraid of, I can decide, how do I really want to experience this thing that I'm afraid of, right? So coming back to the fear, asking, once I ask myself, what am I afraid of? I ask myself, okay, how realistic are these fears? And they might be totally realistic, right? Maybe you have a really challenging relationship with your family, or with your in-laws, right? Or with these particular friends, or whatever it is that you feel afraid of because of that vulnerability and loss of control. It might feel realistic, right? Um, But I know for me, really looking at, okay, where do I have control and agency? That always comes back to myself. I have control over me. I have control over how I feel, because actually nobody can really make me feel any which way. I get to I get to decide how I feel in any given moment. Not that we ever have full control over our emotions, right? Um there's this organic, natural responses that we have in our hearts and in our minds. But I always get to decide how I interpret things. I get to control my perspective, and therefore I do get to control how I experience the people around me and the things that are actually outside of my control. And the last question that I love to ask about fear is it worth the price? Is it worth the price of me, for example, if I call out the fear of judgment right now, right? I'm afraid of judgment, and therefore I'm going to run around like a mad woman, making sure every corner of the house is 100% perfectly clean and there's not a speck of dust anywhere, right? If that's my fear of judgment, and that's how I try to control the fear, by trying to make sure nobody can judge me or see me as unfit or less than, by controlling my environment and my surroundings. What is that costing me? That's costing me exhaustion. That's costing me, I'm just feeding the fear, because really all I'm managing is trying to remove what they could judge. I'm not really addressing my fear of being judged, right? And I'm setting myself up to feel resentful if I have expectations of that being appreciated. Or what if they still judge me and don't like me, right? I mean, that's not the kind of question I would want to ask myself. But really, what I'm saying is, I can't control how they perceive me. I can't. And so, is it worth the price of me, losing my dignity and my feeling like I have to earn my feeling of being accepted and loved and self worth by running around like a madwoman and getting exhausted and going overboard, right? These are things that I used to do. And I know for me, the answer is no, it's not worth it. It's not worth the price of trying to manage other people's opinions, other people's papers, other people's words or responses or looks. It's not worth it. It's too exhausting, and I can't do it anyways. And there's no peace in that. I can never experience peace so long as I'm trying to manage other people. And if I don't feel peaceful, it's very unlikely that I will feel peaceful within my relationship as well. And if I don't feel peaceful within my relationship, I probably don't feel connected either. So it's actually a very lonely experience to have fears driving my life and driving how I show up and what I do and what I don't do. And so, what can I do, right? Coming back to what you do have control over, that's always ourselves. That gets to be us, right? So, I always like to come back and decide how I want to experience. How do I want to experience things? I don't want to be in my head worried about being judged, for example, right? But how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? Such a powerful question that I would invite you to come back to whenever you are feeling anxious about something or feeling exposed or like you're at a loss of control. How do you want to feel? Because that's something you always do have control over. Right? How do you want to experience something? So I know for me, when running through this in my mind, um, and asking myself, okay, how do I want to experience the time that we are hosting these guests, who are wonderful, beautiful people, by the way. It's all just, so much of it is my own head. But I realized, yeah, I want to get to know them better. I want to be a tourist in my own town. Like, what a awesome experience to have fun and do some wonderful self care by just getting curious and seeing my local area through the eyes of somebody who's never seen it before. There's so many beautiful, wonderful places to visit around here. Um, I want to keep my sleep routine as much as possible, right? Not sacrifice that. Again, from fear. In the past, I would have sacrificed my sleep and stayed up super late to clean. Why? Because I was afraid of being judged. I would have woken up super early to make breakfast for everybody. Why? Because I wanted to be the perfect hostess and was afraid that if everybody wasn't comfortable, and it was a lack of trust in other people, basically. I couldn't trust other people to be okay without me. And if they had to, then maybe they wouldn't like me. Right. And so coming back to my vision, right, I wanted to feel like I could just be myself and laugh and have fun and be relaxed and maybe create like my own mini staycation out of this, right? Maybe it's my vacation too, that I get to maybe take a nap in the afternoon if I'm tired, that I get to receive help, right? That I get to not be the one that has to be perfect, but I'm just one of the group. You're right. I'm part of this, and I get to enjoy just as much. I get to enjoy. I get to have fun. I get to read in the hammock. I still get to read. I still get to call a friend if I want to. I still want to honor my routine of going on morning walks. Right? How do I want to feel? I want to feel relaxed, happy, joyful, calm, and I know for me, if I don't have a vision, then the outcome is decided for me. The vision is so important. Without the vision, the experience will still happen in it will be decided for me. If I don't decide what I want to experience, the experience will be decided for me. So that part is so key. All right, so we have facing the fears, right? And then number two, deciding what experience you want to have. Step number three is releasing expectations, right? What do you want to release? Releasing expectations, releasing control of everything and everyone I can't control, releasing fear, releasing the need to be perfect. Because only when I release all of these things, release everything that I'm afraid of, release everything that I'm expecting to go either perfectly or to go wrong, releasing the need to manage other people's papers. When I release all of that, it gives me the space and the bandwidth and the permission to come back to myself, to come home to not only where I have control, but actually where I have a responsibility to tend to do best by, right? Because when I take care of myself, I can show up as the best version of me. And that is so much better for all the people around me, right? So as wives, we have powerful, this powerful responsibility, but also this powerful opportunity to set the tone, not only for ourselves, but also for the people around us, for our marriage, for our family, for our kids, for our community, right? For our neighbors, whatever it is, we really are so powerful in setting the tone and the energy and the dynamics of our relationships. But the only way to do that, the only way to be able to accomplish that is by first releasing everything that we're holding that we actually have no control over at all, right? So, what are you holding on to that you can't control? Is it expectations about how your husband should be showing up, should be interacting with your family or with his own family? Is it expectations about the time that he should be spending with you or the things that he should be doing? Is it expectations about the people that you're surrounded by and how they live and how they interact with you, right? What expectations are holding you back? And the reason I say that expectations hold you back is because The only person we have control over is ourselves. And focusing our energy on anything outside of that, well, it's using energy that could be so much better spent on doing and creating beautiful relationships, starting with the relationship with ourselves. Which brings me to the next step, which is self care, taking beautiful, wonderful care of yourself, right? When you are doing things for you, gosh, then you can show up as your most magnetic and a joyful and happy and attractive self. And that can create connection within your marriage, but also with whoever you want to connect with. An exhausted soul is going to really struggle to connect with anybody, right? And so often when we feel resentful, it's because we're exhausted. And so I know for me, making that self care list was absolutely indispensable. So I do that to this day, right? If we're going to host people, uh, if it's for a prolonged amount of time, for sure, but even if it's just for a few hours, and I've made the mistake of not doing this, and gosh, then I pay for it in how tired I feel afterwards. And so it's so important. I make that self care list. I'm going to make sure that I'm well fed and well rested and hydrated. And then taking it deeper and beyond that, making myself ridiculously happy, whatever that takes. For me, that takes a morning walk with my dog. That takes reading a few chapters from my favorite book. It often takes texting with my sisters or calling my best friend. What does that take for you to feel ridiculously happy, right? And if you look at your scale, a scale of 1 to 10, one being that you're depleted, resentful, and exhausted, and 10 being that you're ridiculously happy, where do you fall on that scale? And if you're not at the 10, then I'd really, really encourage you to take another look at your self care list. And self care doesn't have to take a long time, it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be something as simple as sitting on your porch and listening to the birds while you have some tea. Or it can be calling a friend that always makes you laugh, right? Um, or it can be big and luxurious, like going to a spa, right? But it doesn't have to be. Just whatever feels like it would really nourish you and make you happy and make you feel joyful. You deserve it. You deserve it. And I know a lot of women say, oh, it feels selfish because in order to take the time to pour into myself, I'm taking away from time that I could be connecting with my husband or doing something for my children or cleaning the house and knocking things off of my to-do list. And I know for me, whenever I feel that lack of time, lack of energy, or whatever it is, feeling like it's selfish, it's been so helpful to remind myself that time really does expand when I've taken care of myself first. So all of the things that need to get done will still get done eventually, right? The laundry will still get put away eventually. And even if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. But that it's definitely a worthy price to pay to make sure that I'm happy and well rested, because that's what's going to give me the connection, not the put away laundry, not the impeccable house, not the breakfast that's cooked for all of the visitors, right? Those things are nice add-ons, nice to have, but they are not what are going to give me connection. What gives me connection? What creates the environment and the space that is conducive to connection? It's when I'm happy and well rested. That's what it is. Step number 5 is to honor what I truly desire. So, again, so much of the issues that I ran into in my marriage, time and time again, but more specifically when there was family involved or guests or just feeling um, overwhelmed or anxious, it was because I was sacrificing. I had it so deeply embedded in me. It wasn't that this was a conscious thought process, but it was just so embedded in me, this idea that a good wife or a good mother or a good woman sacrifices what she really wants in order to make everybody else happy. And so, for example, if I knew that my guests wanted to wake up and go to the beach, um, but I had only gotten 3 hours of sleep the night previous, right? Before I would have just said, okay, that's what they want, then, I'll make sure that I get them there and I'll pack a lunch to go with it, right? Sacrificing, thinking that that would somehow earn me more love or acceptance. And that's really what it was underneath that. Again, this was not conscious at the time. I thought this is just what a good hostess does. This is what a good wife does. This is what a good woman does. But really, deep, deep down, it was that fear, my way of trying to control the uncontrollable, which is other people's perceptions of me and responses to me, right? And so, really coming back to how do I feel? What do I want? If the answer was, I'm exhausted and I really want a nap, then honoring that and letting go of the fear of, oh, no, they're going to think maybe they'll think I'm rude, right? Or I don't know, but that's not my business. That's not my thing to worry about. In fact, it was disrespectful to be assuming and putting words into other people's mouths. And even if they never did, because but even if they had, let's just say, for the example, let's just say that somebody had said, "Oh, how rude! How dare you take a nap in the middle of when we wanted to go to the beach," for example. Um, that's still not my paper. That's still not something within my control, right? And furthermore, it's that trust that it's not all on me, right? The whole world is not on my shoulders. So that question, how do I feel? What do I want? Coming back to it time and time and time again has been such a wonderful guide for any moment when I started to feel that loss of control, that fear, that vulnerability, um, and the stress and resentment that came with it from all of that. So, another way that I love to form that question is, what would the most confident and calm and joyful version of me do right now? And having that guide me, because I know, right? I know for sure what the scared and yeah, what the scared version of me would do. The scared version of me would be overextending and sacrificing my needs and desires, um, and falling into like that doormat, people pleasing position, right? That never really felt very dignified. Uh, but the most confident version of me would honor my own desires, right? How do I feel and what do I want? And honoring them for myself, but also just voicing them. And even if they don't happen or come to fruition, for example, if I voiced, you know, yeah, I'd love to go to the beach that has the cliff walk, right? If I said, like, because that's my favorite beach, right? And it didn't happen. Let's just say everyone else, I don't know, maybe just an example. Maybe I got outvoted or something, and everyone else wanted to go somewhere else. I could be happy in knowing in myself that I honored it just by voicing it. So it's not so much in the result of what happens, but the confidence that comes from being able to voice the desire, and that is honoring it, right? Just saying it out loud or honoring it for myself when I can, it instills confidence that I am worthy of my desires, even if I don't get them all the time, because they might not always be able to happen, and that's fine. But it's not about the results, it's about the confidence that it instills to be able to voice them and honor them. Now, I know for me, those 5 steps have always time and time and time again grounded me back into my place of power, which is always myself, my place of influence, which is always where I can create connection from and where I'm at home from, right? So I'll go over them, right? Facing the fears, deciding how you want to experience this. So, in other words, your vision, releasing expectations, control, fear, the need to be perfect, self care, and honoring your desires. So, isn't it funny how we can experience such a huge emotional shift before anything outside of ourselves has actually shifted? Our inner world is often actually what dictates how we experience so much of our life. I know for me, when I ran through that practice, all of a sudden I realized, oh, the anxiety is lifted. I'm no longer afraid. I'm just excited. I'm so excited to welcome these guests. I'm so excited to have a wonderful time and get to know them more deeply. And yeah, and just have fun and be a tourist and in my own local area, right? And get more rest and eat delicious foods and receive help. Um, and I don't know, visit the beach with the cliff walk, right? So I know for me that shift is almost instant. When I come home to my place of power and release everybody's papers back to themselves, all of a sudden I can have fun again. I can feel connected, not to mention what that does for my relationship with my husband, right? The calm and the peace that comes in my marriage when I'm back on my paper, when I'm really solidly grounded in what I would love and not fretting about other people or trying to get anybody else, not trying to control anybody else's thoughts or responses, including my husband's. That is just so inviting and warm, and it creates so much more connection than when I'm stressed or resentful. So just like that can happen when family is visiting or we're visiting family or we're hosting people or any situation that shakes up your routine or shakes up your everyday, how your marriage goes. That same thing could be said for marriage too, right? Trying to control our circumstances outside of ourselves and manage other people like our husbands for sure, right? Or our family or anybody else, it creates inner turmoil. While releasing control creates peace. So, the quickest way, in my experience, to enjoy the people that you love is to stop trying to manage how they feel about you or how they respond to you, and to stop trying to perform for them or earn acceptance or earn love because you're already worthy of that, to face your fears, to relinquish what's outside of your control, to take excellent control of yourself, and to honor your desires. Your calm and joy are just on the other side of that. Now, if today resonated with you and you recognize yourself in this pattern of overthinking and overfunctioning or trying to be the perfect wife and still feeling like you're alone or not getting the connection that you crave, this is exactly what we work on inside my program, The Connection Reset. How to stop abandoning yourself inside your marriage so you can feel more calm, more grounded, and more connected to your husband and to yourself. So if you're ready for that shift, you can join us inside of the Connection Reset. I'd love to see you there. If you're interested, the link with more details is in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, keep softening into love.